I'm going to do this video for everybody out there that doesn't get how George Zimmerman is guilty. Alright, so we're just going to break this down very slowly for all of you. Because the ones that think he's guilty, they don't need this broken down to them. Alright, first question, ask yourself this. Why did George Zimmerman have a gun? We're not saying he's guilty for having a gun. We're not saying that. I'm saying to you, why did he have a gun? For self-defense. Is there any other answers? For self-defense, right? Okay. He didn't have to go murder somebody, he had it for self-defense. Secondly, now you ask yourself this. Self-defense from what? What do you need self-defense from? In the event somebody was trying to hurt him or attack him or whatever, they're going to cause him bodily harm, whatever, right? Correct. Let's just get this out of the way. For all them reasons, right? Okay. So, when George Zimmerman started following Trayvon Martin, he knew he had that on him. Trayvon Martin didn't know it, but he knew he had it on him. So you're telling me this. How the hell is it, if he's following him around, that he was able to let Trayvon Martin get his hands on him before pulling out his weapon? You have that there for a reason. He knew he had it there for a reason. So there's only one or two reasons. It would be if Trayvon Martin snuck up on him and George Zimmerman didn't see him coming. But he ain't saying that. That's not his testimony. He's just saying that he walked up on him, they started arguing, and he attacked him. Okay, now let's say this. He saw him coming, so if he had a gun, which he knew about, George Zimmerman put it in his own waist. He knew he had his gun there. It's not like he found it when he was fighting. He knew it was there. So how could have Trayvon Martin have got a hold of Zimmerman before he could get his gun out? Now, had George Zimmerman's testimony been this: I pulled my gun out, Trayvon Martin still attacked me, and then I shot him, there would be no argument. But that's not George Zimmerman's story. His story is Trayvon Martin was kicking his ass, and while he was on top of him, slamming his head into the concrete, he shot him. Let me show you why there's some flaws in that story. Let me show you why, because apparently the prosecution didn't show you. If he knows he has the gun, and he comes up on him, he already assumed Trayvon Martin was a person that was dangerous. Didn't he not assume that? He assumed he was a thief or whatever he was going to go do out. That's why he started following him. So if he assumed that about him, why wouldn't he assume the worst situation? When Trayvon Martin come up on him, he should have automatically assumed it, because he already had it in his head. Trayvon Martin's a guilty type of person. So when he seen him coming, he should have been like, look. And they even have to pull it out yet. He could have just been like, Trayvon Martin has a right to approach him. You have two choices when someone's following you. You could walk away and run, or you could turn around and say, what's your problem? I'm assuming Trayvon Martin said, what's your problem? Whether he punched him or not, or first or not, it doesn't matter. He still has a right to turn around and see what this dude's following him for. So, Trayvon Martin comes up on him. He knows he has a gun, and he couldn't pull it out to say, look, why are you trying to come after me? He didn't do that. Why? Because he baited Trayvon Martin in. He wanted Trayvon Martin to attack him. So let's go with the story that George Zimmerman's telling the truth. Let's just go with that Trayvon Martin attacked him and they started fighting. Now let's get to the real issue. Let's just go with that. They was fighting. Trayvon Martin just didn't get shot right there then and there. It's still murder, and I'm going to show you why it's still murder. When Trayvon Martin and him started fighting, you're telling me that it was George Zimmerman on that 911 call yelling for help? You know why he wasn't yelling for help? You ask your own selves this question. Why did you have a gun in your waist? Why? Because that's what you're going to use in order to self-defense, right? You don't need no help. His help was right here in his waist. His help would have been, pow! That would have been his help. His help wouldn't have been sitting there getting beat up yelling for help. His help would have been grabbing his gun and shooting him. Now, for you to still doubt, because I know there's some of you out there, let's get to the bigger issue. The bigger issue, that's not even the biggest issue. The bigger issue was this. His story was this. Trayvon Martin was slamming this isn't my story, let's get this through your heads. His story was Trayvon Martin was slamming his head into the ground. Alright? He's slamming his head into the ground. Morgan, get over for a minute, I want to talk to you quick. Hurry up. I'm going to show you how he's full of crap by saying that. Alright? This isn't true at all. I'm going to show you why. Get over here. Lay on the ground real quick. Lay on the ground right here. Get over here. Look, let me show you something. You hearing the 911 calls? Because I heard them. I'm not making them up. I heard them. The yell for help, in intervals of timing they was yelling for help, was the most consistent of someone just standing still saying, help! 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 That's how it was. Consistent. There was a certain certain time frame in between each help, like it was someone was yelling off a rhythm. There was a rhythm in how you was yelling help. Like help, then there's a moment of silence, and then help. Now, every single one of them was like that. So unless you're saying this, Trayvon Martin's doing this to him. Bam, bam. Okay, Zimmerman, yell for help. Yell? Okay, you yell? I'm going to keep doing it. And then he said, okay, let's get it again. Couple more slams in. Now yell for help again, Zimmerman. That ain't how it went down. Now you tell me this. If you getting your head slammed into the concrete, you a grown-ass man, and you sitting there getting your head slammed into the concrete, are you just laying there? Are you just laying there? No, you're going to do a fight back, right? Let's say you're fighting back. Are you yelling for help, but you're fighting back at the top of your lungs? You can't. Your first yell might have been at the top of your lungs. The ones after that would have been, help, get up, get up. That's what it would have been like. If you were a chump, that's what it would have been like. Now, let's go in to say I'm still wrong. Let's just say I'm still wrong. And that ain't how it went down. If I'm over top of her, and I'm slamming her head into the concrete, for some odd reason, George punk ass didn't want to defend himself. He said, I'm going to leave my hands down by my waist, and I'm not even going to defend myself. I'm just going to sit like this. Bam, get my head slammed into the concrete like he's saying with little scratches on his head. That's concrete slams, right? Whatever. So then he reaches down, and he grabs his gun. He didn't even have to cock it. He just pulled the trigger, which means he already had a bullet in the chamber, right? Let's get that out of the way right now, too. So then he shoots him. Shoot me in my chest. Which way am I falling? Which way am I falling? I'm falling straight down on top of George, right? Right? When they found Trayvon Martin's body, he was laying on his arms. On his arms. So you tell me this. If I fall down like this, how is George Zimmerman getting off me? How am I getting off of George Zimmerman? He's throwing me off, okay? He's throwing me off, which means he's not going to screw him off like this. Get off of me, please. He's going to throw him off. Now, okay, let's say I'm still wrong. Let's go with your theory that I'm still wrong. Then ask yourself this last question. It's the most crucial. If he shoots me right here, my momentum of my body's going there. Let's say George is fast as lightning. He scoots out of the way. But right when he shoots him, what can he be faster than? That bullet. When that bullet hits me, where's my blood falling? Onto him and onto that gun. They found not one trace of DNA on that gun. If I'm wrong, you go by and look at all the stuff that they was talking about. There's not one trace of DNA on that gun. How is it I'm over top of him, slamming his head into the concrete? There ain't one trace of DNA on that gun. How? How is that possible? Here's the real story went down. I bet you anything it's what really went down. And George is his punk ass whooped and tortured in order for him to admit this. He went after Trayvon, which he should have never went in the first place. Okay? He goes after him. Trayvon Martin has every right to turn around and ask us to do what he wants. He goes back. And here's what George Zimmerman did. Knowing he had a gun, he baited Trayvon in. He baited Trayvon in to think that, you know what? I ain't gonna pull out my gun. I'm gonna leave it there and act like I'm just a dude that wants to start some problems. So now Trayvon Martin gets a hold of him. After he gets a hold of him, he gets maybe a couple good hits in. That's why the scratch on the back of his head, they ain't from concrete. Scratch on the back of his head, because he's probably wrestling around with him like this. Got scratch on it. They ain't no trained fighters or nothing. They both had scratch on there. He probably had scratch on his head because Trayvon Martin was ripping at his head or whatever. He pulls the gun out. Here's where the help comes in. He pulls his gun out, and Trayvon Martin knew he was in trouble then. Because this dude is salty now. And we all know, growing up, when you get beat up, if you live in that kind of life, you feel salty if someone beats you up. So he got beat up, he's salty now, and he's pointing the gun at Trayvon Martin, and Trayvon Martin is the one yelling for help right now because he knows he's in trouble. He yelled for help 5 or 6 times in the intervals of time I was telling you. There was an elapsed time that was about consistent with the equal amount of time from the prior help. He's yelling help there, and then George Zimmerman shoots him. 911 call after 911 call, there was people saying they heard people arguing. They heard people arguing. And then a little bit of wrestling, and then they heard people yelling help. So you're telling me, what story you really believe?